Hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Friday's edition of Raiders Daily, live on Bleacher Report. Whether you're watching right now or after the fact, thank you so much for joining me. After the fact, that would be on my YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders. It is Friday, which means that this is the last of this week's, and then I hand it back off to my partner, Mo, Monday to Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And then I'll be back on Thursday and Friday again. Now, yesterday, by the way, my name is Rodney. If you already knew that, thank you so much for coming back and watching another live stream. I want to see people getting active in the chat. If you're here, let me know. How are we feeling? How are we doing? You're taking in a live stream before a wild Friday night of partying, staying in and playing video games. I don't know. Whatever you guys do, I want to know. What's your Friday looking like? Just making sure that we're live here and that everyone can hear me and see me. And we are good to go. So, I make a lot of YouTube videos, obviously, about the Raiders specifically, and I see a lot of people in the comments or in my Raiders Discord. You can join that too, ALLaBorde Raiders Discord. I see a lot of people that have different opinions on where our roster is right now, what a successful season in 2025 looks like. And I'm very interested to hear from the people listening today and after the fact, because we're going to talk about. I stumbled upon an article here, and it quotes a lot of Dan Orlovsky, somebody that wasn't a great quarterback in the National Football League, but turned out to be a pretty good analyst after the fact. And he talked a lot about how close we are to competing, especially how good we can do with Geno Smith. But it's dependent on us getting at least one more veteran in the building at a certain position. And it's something that I harped a lot about when I was coming up with my free agency plan and my offseason plan for the Raiders, which was centered around Chris Godwin. And I'm curious to see if the Raiders do anything wide receiver wise, because there are still some people out there, right, that we have to sign one of these guys. And I'm going to put up a poll in a little bit here, giving you guys different options of which wide receivers I think we should go after. I'm curious to see which one you guys would pick out of these four options. They're four very distinct, different choices. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what a successful season looks like for the Raiders in 2025. Because again, depending on how we end this free agency run here, now we hit in the draft, you can convince me that we should just look like we're playing hard and we win 7 games and that's okay. Or there's a world in which we're challenging for the division. So there's going to be levels to this whole thing. But I want to immediately get into this article. What's going on, Rob? Rob Hine. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let's get other people going in the chat here. I know there's people in here. I want to see people active because we're going to put out polls very soon here. There he is, Denode. What's going on? How we feeling? How we doing? Thank you for sharing your Fridays with me. I only have you here for about a half hour, then you can go do your thing. So I want to read this article that I found on Yardbreaker. I think I found it on Bleacher Report, but it's a Yardbreaker article, I believe. Let me share this right here. Are we good to go? Yeah. And okay, so this right here, written by Anthony Galavis. Analyst believes Raiders can maximize on Geno Smith's potential by adding at this position. And we're going to get into exactly what that position is, which is going to be the wide receiver position, which to me is something that, look, I've liked how the offseason has gone so far, but I would like to grab another wide out. And it's making me a little worrisome that, now with Cooper Kupp off the board, there aren't going to be as many people available for us. So it starts off by saying there is no question Las Vegas Raiders can win games behind quarterback Geno Smith. He did it for the Seattle Seahawks, going 28-24 in 5 seasons and notching a playoff berth in 2022 with quality wide receivers like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. In an ESPN article published Friday, Dan Orlovsky named the Raiders' acquisition of Smith as the number 2 free agent quarterback move behind Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks. So that's very interesting. Las Vegas can win with Smith. Expect a lot of play action passing with new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Orlovsky wrote, the Raiders missed out on last year's quarterback draft class, and there's no guarantee they can get a top passer at 6 in this next month's draft, though the move shouldn't keep them from drafting a QB. I agree with that, Dan. They added a veteran who can help them win right away, especially if the team also adds another receiver or two. So that's the interesting thing that I want to talk about today. Noted the word if. The Raiders have not helped Smith so far in free agency. The only wide receivers remaining on the roster who started this past season are Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, and star tight end Brock Bowers. After that, there is not another well-known name who can pick up the slack. So before I even put this poll out here, by the way, I want you to start commenting your options as to who we should grab wide receiver wise. Besides him and Bowers, though, there is not another player who can go into the starting lineup and be the number one receiver. I do think Trey Tucker can have a better impact. I mean, Trey Tucker only plays well when Aiden plays because Aiden can stretch the ball down the field and Gardner cannot at all. So I do think there's a world in which Trey Tucker can take another step, but I don't think he's going to become some Tyreek Hill level player. There are top receivers remaining in free agency. Yardbreaker recently listed Cooper Kupp, who's gone, obviously. Tyler Lockett and Stephon Diggs as three players the Raiders should target. And then they wrap it up, getting Kupp would be a long shot, blah, 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 blah. Keenan Allen could also be a possibility for the Raiders. The former Charger and Bears wide receiver finished with 744 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns last season. Could be looking to bounce back in a big way in 2025. The Raiders have $47-ish million in cap space, according to Over the Cap. That's going to go down a little when they extend Geno Smith. It is possible they will select a receiver in the 2025 draft, but for now, the Silver and Black should bring in a veteran wide receiver who aids Smith, Myers, and Bowers. So that's where the article leaves us. And I see people saying Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen still has some juice left. They mentioned drafted maybe a T-Mac, right? There's also another wide receiver out there. So I'm going to go through, I just gave it away. Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, and Stephon Diggs. We're going to break down their last few seasons here, and then we'll put the poll out. Starting with, and by the way, this goes into how well we are going to be able to compete next year. If we add one of these veteran guys, which I do foresee us doing, this offense could be leaps and bounds better than last year. Even if they don't add them, it's still going to be better because we're going to have more competent quarterback play. But the wide receiver position is very important for a quarterback like Geno Smith, who is good, not great, who can put you on his shoulders for a game, but not an entire season. So the first player I want to take a look at here is Amari Cooper. Now, these are his last few season stats. He's 30 years old. Obviously, we know him all too well. One of the best route runners in the National Football League. He ran a 4.22. That's insane. I didn't know he was that fast. Okay, so in 2 seasons with the Browns, he had 1,000 yards, under 80 yards receiving, but still averaged, 15 and 17 per. He had, 14 touchdowns in those past 2 seasons. And then last year, I mean, the quarterback play in Cleveland was terrible. I guess he was banged up a little bit as well. Then he went to Buffalo. Couldn't really ever find his footing, although with Josh Allen, he did a lot better. Obviously 15 per, along with 30 and 2 touchdowns. So that's the first player to consider, right? Amari feels like a long shot just because it's kind of a been there, done that, like some people are saying in the chat right now. But I don't rule it out as a possibility, and I do think he has some juice left. Okay, so now let's move on. We did Amari. Now let's talk about probably the number one option here for most people in the chat, and that's going to be Tyler Lockett. Now I have to scroll down a little here, right, because it's in reverse order. Okay, right here. So his last 2 seasons, his last 1,000-yard season was 3 years ago in 2022. His last 2 seasons, and by the way, I think he's 30. How old is he? 1992. What's the math on that? 32 years old. Is that right? I don't know. Help me out. Help me out, on math major. So 2 years ago, he had 1,000 yards receiving. He had 9 touchdowns. I mean, this guy has been one of the most consistent wide receivers of the last decade of football, but the last 2 years has kind of fallen off a little bit. Now, is that because of his ability, or is that because the Seahawks got younger with DK and Jackson Smith and Jigba? I think, Tyler Lockett would fit well with us because he's going to be that third fiddle, just like he was in Seattle, because we have Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. I think him and Amari are similar in terms of just consistency. Amari is a more pure route runner. Tyler Lockett is a more vertical threat, slot kind of guy. but that's an interesting person to think about as well. And then last, but I don't know, maybe least, I don't know. Let's see. Share the screen here, and we go to Stefan Diggs, probably the most controversial person on this list here. He is 31 years old. He'll be 32 halfway through the next season. Now, look, he's probably the oldest of all of them, but his consistency has still been there. He was still having a really good season before his ACL injury. Last year on the Bills, he still had 1,000 yards, 107 catches, and 8 touchdowns. The biggest issue with him is the attitude isn't the greatest, although I will say it's not anything to work around, and Pete Carroll will be able to work with him. And he's coming off an ACL injury. So I don't think he's going to be ready to start week one. Yeah, with the math that works out, I don't think he's going to be 100% ready to go week one. But if he comes back completely healthy, is probably the most talented and best option here to go with. So we've successfully broken down options at wideout. Now, the last person I did not talk about was T-Mac, not Tracy McGrady. McMillan, I still don't know how to say his first name, and until I hear somebody say it out loud, I'm not going to attempt to say it. So I'm going to call him T-Mac. And then, by the way, I'm going to read the chat when I'm done here putting the poll out. If you're going to draft McMillan, that means you have to pass up on Genty, pass up on a defensive guy like a Mason Graham probably, or Shador Sanders, and be comfortable taking a wideout at 6. Now, if you trade back to 9, maybe you get him at 9. You have to hope and pray. Here's what I'll say about these options as I put the poll out, and make sure we're voting in the poll as I take a drink of water. I think I would be pretty happy with any one of these options. Now, obviously, there are levels to all this, and if I had to rank them from 4 to 1, I would say Stefan Diggs, I would like the least, then Amari, then T-Mac, then Tyler Lockett. The only reason why I have T-Mac second in terms of options of people that I would want to be that new wide receiver is because a wide receiver at 6 feels pretty lofty, especially when I can't remember there being I can't remember the last time there was a wide receiver class that wasn't extremely deep. I mean, Justin Jefferson wasn't the first wideout taken for when, he ended up being the best. Neighbors looks like he's better than Marvin Harrison. Brian Thomas looks like he's better than Malik Nate. Like, it's easier to find a number one wideout who can make impact plays later in the draft, later in the first round. So maybe you could take somebody at 6 and then trade back up into the first round and draft a secondary wide receiver that isn't T-Mac. Although if they take him, I would be thrilled. Amari is interesting because Amari, I think there's a world in which he would come back because the people that let him go, it wasn't Mark Davis, it was John Gruden. Everybody else is completely new. Pete Carroll's new, Chip Kelly's new, Geno Smith is new. I think he could have a renewed sense of like, yeah, I'm back with the Raiders. I'm going to give it a second go here. That could be very interesting. Stefan Diggs, look, I just don't think that's going to happen because of the ACL of it all. If they want to roll with Brock and Jacoby and Trey Tucker for a couple of games before he comes back, okay, maybe there's a world in where you can convince me that they would do that. Tyler Lockett is probably my number one option because he's already shown that he's capable of being that kind of second or third tier option within a Geno Smith offense. He's obviously has the best rapport with any of these wide receivers. I'm sure Geno is in the ear of Spytech. Excuse me, I'm burping a lot today. I had Chick-fil-A, forgive me. He's in the ear of Spytech and Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll saying, go get Tyler Lockett. And I'm sure Pete Carroll's like, you don't have to tell me twice, dude. I want to go get him just as much as you. We just got to make sure your extension is done first and the timing's right. Let him interview, do his due diligence. We got to figure out if Chip Kelly can utilize him the right way. But I think there's a world in which they draft a running back, whether that's Genty at 6, right? Or somebody later, and Amarion Hampton, a Judkins, a Travion Henderson. And then you have Tyler Lockett, Jacoby Myers as your 1 and 2 wideouts, and Brock Bowers up the middle being the focal point. You still got a Michael Mayer to back them up. You still got a Trey Tucker to take the top off the defense. You can convince me that that's not the worst thing in the world to roll out in 2025. Now, obviously, at a certain point, you'd like to be able to upgrade at the wide receiver position to find that true blue number 1 to complement Brock Bowers. But for right now, I think these are all good options. The only reason, again, I'd be hesitant to take T-Mac at 6 is because I think you can find a wide receiver that's just as impactful later in the draft. So that's kind of where I'm landing right now. Although, all that to say, we just got to go get somebody. The scary thing about getting T-Mac at 6 is that implies that we didn't really go get a wideout out there. Maybe we go get a Hunter Renfrow. Probably not, though, right? So let's see what people are saying in the chat. I see Tyler Lockett. I see draft, and Lockett. Cups to Seahawks now anyways. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I would have liked to grab him. There could be a sneaky trade. Interesting. Let's see. A Jalen Milroe comment. Okay, I'll read a Jalen Milroe comment. Milroe would be a great Taysom Hill type player while we develop in a QB. So give him a couple reps every now and again, like we did Marcus Mariota. That's interesting. Save that. Re-comment that at the end of the stream here in about 15 minutes, and we'll get back to that because that feels like a longer talking point. Like Lockett for a 1-year deal. He's on a decline. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. What do I think of Allen Lazard, tall and fast? Yeah, he's good. I just don't think he makes an impact quite like these other 4 guys. Let's see. No reunions. I understand that, but people were clamoring for Mac to come back. So why not Amari? I have nothing but good things to say about Amari. He was good. He was good with us. He tried. Lockett is much more durable. I already read that. I put Keenan Allen and Lockett in the same class of get one for $12 million for 2 years. I don't hate that. Keenan Allen's interesting. I didn't have Keenan Allen on this list. I wouldn't hate Keenan Allen either. I would love to have him play against the Chargers, the team that let him go to keep Joey Bosa. Now they cut Joey Bosa, so they'd have either of them. Keenan Allen, the reason I didn't have him on here, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't have him on here. I wanted to get T-Mac in there, so I guess that I had to sacrifice the Keenan Allen of it all. But Keenan Allen, let's bring up Keenan Allen's stats. Where's Keenan Allen? I'm going to bring up Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, because that's who the article said we could bring in here. So let's do Keenan Allen. I mean, Keenan Allen is the oldest, right? He's the oldest of all these guys. Thank you for the Keenan Allen comment, though. I'm quickly realizing that I should probably talk about him. He's 32. Probably will be 33 sometime this past season. Last year with Herbert and the Chargers, he had 1,300 yards, 108 catches, and 7 touchdowns. With Caleb Williams, that was a tough season for them. They fired their offensive coordinator. Eberflus was a nightmare. There was a lot of different people to get the ball to, like DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, and he still had 70 for 744 and 7 touchdowns. Keenan Allen is interesting too. I wouldn't mind bringing him in. He might feel like the most expensive between him and Diggs, right? I'm curious if Keenan Allen was on this list, if you guys would have voted for him instead, although Stephon Diggs is getting 0. So maybe I do another poll. Should I do another poll? Yeah, I'll do another poll. Let me create another poll, and I'll add Keenan Allen to the list. Which wide receiver should I like how we're doing this on the fly. It makes me feel very professional. Should the Raiders acquire? ? And we'll do Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen, or T-Mac with the 6th pick. So we're going to do another poll here. And let's see if the opinion changes, because we've got a 3-way tie now between Amari, Tyler Lockett, and T-Mac. So let's create this poll here. Let's get rid of this one. And let's put the new poll out here with Keenan Allen. We're making audibles, man. We're Omaha in this whole setup that I have. Now with your brand new, fresh group here, swapping out Stephon Diggs, where do we go wide receiver-wise now? Do we go Keenan Allen? Now, here's what I'll say. My order probably still stands. I go Tyler Lockett number 1, T-Mac number 2, Keenan Allen number 3, Amari Cooper number 4. Those are interchangeable. But again, all that to say, hey, people are not voting in the poll. What's up? What are we doing? Um, all that to say, let's just go get one of these guys. 100,000%. Okay, so Chip Kelly would be important during the draft. He's been in college the last few years, and he knows a lot of guys that we aren't even thinking about. That's a good point. He knows exactly where to go with everything here, wide receiver wise, running back wise. That would be a solid option. Savage Raider, Keenan Allen, he's a Cal Bear. That's true. Any of them or two. Hot Mike User wants both. I love the aggressiveness. I love the greediness. Okay, so T-Mac is now winning with Keenan Allen getting a couple votes here as well. Interesting. Okay, so now Amari Cooper's the one who loses the vote, and it goes to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen did look fantastic at the end of the year. I'm not denying that. Okay, maybe it's Keenan Allen. I should have had him on the poll from the beginning. So I'm going to unpin. I'm going to close this poll here. Okay, so the reason why I did a tight 20 minutes on the wide receiver option is because me and Dan Orlovsky are in lockstep here. The wide receiver position is the position that we need to address, preferably before the draft. I think it's going to happen within the next few days. It'd be really cool if it happened right now while we were live on the air. I don't foresee that happening. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think it's going to be Tyler Lockett with Keenan Allen being the number 2 option. The reason why we're harping on wideout so much is because, like I said, if you take care of the running back position, now you've got Raheem Mostert there with the Sincere McCormick. If you take care of the running back position in the draft, which they will within the first 90 picks, I would have to guess. If I had to put money on it, it's going to be one of the first 4 selections that we take. So you've got a new running back room. You've got a new wide receiver in the mix there with Jacoby and Brock, 2,000-yard receivers. You've got Geno Smith. You've got a top 10-ish defense when everybody's healthy and Patrick Graham is firing on all cylinders. This is what brings me back to the beginning of this live stream that I talked about. What is a successful season for the Raiders in 2025? Now, I asked that before we traded for Geno Smith when the season ended a month ago with Pete Carroll coming in. Is it going to be a rebuild vibe? Pete Carroll quickly said, no, it's not going to be a rebuild. And people in my comments on my YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders, have been up and down and fluctuating about how good this team's going to be and what you want it to be and what we expect it to be. And I see trusted front office. They've figured out they got a plan, still going to get a running back and a wide receiver, no doubt about it. So when I put this poll out to you, I'm not asking what you want the Raiders to look like, right? This isn't the desires of Raider Nation. This is Savage Raider wants to beat the Chiefs twice. I wouldn't hate that. We're the only team that plays them competitively for some reason. I want you to answer this poll question as if you are making a prediction. What do you expect the Raiders to look like in the year 2025? They've added Geno. They haven't really addressed the offensive line yet. They've solidified the defensive line. They still need a linebacker or two and another corner. They need to address the running back room and the wide receiver room. We've hit on a bunch of wide receivers they can go get. We've talked about Ashton Genty or the other running backs. There's still a couple holes on defense, and this is year one with the new Pete Carroll, Patrick Graham, Chip Kelly mold. Okay? And again, when you vote for this, so the people that are voting challenge for the division, that's what you actually expect to happen. I'm not knocking it. I'm just making sure we're on the same page here. Because last year we won 4 games. Okay? Now, and I've been beating this horse to death for the last 3 weeks, everybody was surprised to see Antonio Pierce start Aiden O'Connell, and at the end of the season, he said, I wish I'd start Gardner Minshew. AP at the end of the season said, I wish I'd started Aiden O'Connell from the get-go. If Aiden O'Connell started every game last year, we would have won we won 4 games. We probably would have won 5, 6-ish, maybe 7 if we were lucky. So you have to assume that with Geno Smith now, a massive upgrade, with Pete Carroll coaching instead of AP, with Chip Kelly calling plays instead of Luke Getsy, with Patrick Graham another year with Kuntz and Wilkins and Crosby, you have to assume that we're at least going to double up, right, from 4 to 8. We also have a last place schedule. Now, that doesn't really mean much because teams, improve. Some people have us on the schedule, and they're not getting the 4-win Raiders. They're going to get like an 8 or 9-win team. So what do I want the Raiders to look like? I obviously want them to try to grab a playoff spot, to be in that wild card mix, and I expect them to be there throughout most of the season. Do I expect a Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Terry McLaurin, type flip of the script where they're in the AFC Championship? No, I do not expect that. Okay? I have tampered expectations. What I want to see is a regime out there that knows what they're doing. What I expect to see is a double up in the win total. 8 wins. That's what the over-under should be. 7.5 should be the over-under. I'm going to slightly take the over. Hopefully a ball bounces our way. There's an upset or two. We can get to 9 or 10. But 8 wins would be enough for me to go, okay, this is clearly working. Pete Carroll in one season has doubled us up from 4 to 8. Find your quarterback of the potential future in this draft. Let him sit under Gino for a few years. Okay? But here's what I don't want. I don't want us to roll into the draft without addressing the wide receiver room. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but I really, truly thought, we'd be able to bring back one of Spillane, Hobbs, or Merrick, and they're all gone. I didn't expect all 3 of them to be gone. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. Now, they addressed the running back room with Raheem Mostert, a veteran that's going to be in there. They need to do the same thing with the wide receivers. So what do I expect? Somewhere between the 8-9 win range. Playoff spot is lurking. If we get lucky, an upset or two, you can get the 10 wins. 11 would be crazy. But it's hard to double up. But it's also hard to make the playoffs 2 years in a row. And about 50% of the teams that make the playoffs one year do not make the playoffs the next year. So there's going to be spots open, and you got to be advantageous enough and deep enough to take advantage of that and to grab one of those playoff spots. And that's going to be the key. I think on the surface, with the coaching staff and the new players that we have, we're going to be able to win some games and be competitive. It's the depth. Because right now, that's where the team feels lacking a little bit. We're going to rely on the guys like Roberts that we just got, or Trey Smith, who didn't play that much, or a Ducan, who didn't play that much last year, to Cameron Richardson, to step up and to take another big leap here. Jagorian Bennett was the guy who took that big leap last year. Is it going to be Ducan this year? I don't know. Only time will tell. We'll see. So let's read the chat here. I already talked about Savage Raider talking about beating the Chiefs twice. That would be unbelievable. And that's another thing. It's like the Chiefs, for the first time in forever, shout out to Frozen, feel a little vulnerable. Like the doors creak. It's open just a little bit. Travis Kelce's coming back. I bet you if you gave Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid truth serum, they probably said, we kind of wish he would have retired because now we got to pay him all this money and he kind of isn't very good anymore, but it is what it is. 8 wins, no blowouts. I don't hate that. Be competitive every game. That's not get blown out in any game. 7 to 9 wins. I don't hate that. 10 wins is a good season. First year with a whole new franchise, basically going to take a year to get everything right. Add 3 or 4 more wins from last year. That would be astronomical. It's the season of optimism. I don't disagree, Savage Raider. With a heavy D, we can compete. With a healthy D, we can compete for the division. Let's move on from what I just said there. This is why they aren't spending crazy money. They are rightening the ship. Is rightening a word? I guess we'll find out when this is done, and I'll Google it. Getting everything in order, getting back to mediocrity. The next year, you will see them spend big on free agents. That's bars, man. That's gospel. From your ears to the football. No, from your mouth to the football god's ears. Forget it, Hot Mike User. Don't say a word. That's a perfect time to end it. Look, it's been another classy 30 minutes. Okay? I'm going to hand it off to my partner, Mo. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I will be back here Thursday and Friday. By then, we'll have some more free agents to talk about. Hopefully some wideouts. We'll have Geno Smith's press conference, I'm assuming, which is probably going to be filled with sound bites. I cannot wait for that. If you watched me live on Bleacher Report, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching me after the fact on YouTube, hit that like button, comment away, and please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.